good morning. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Thank you very much for tuning in. Some transfer updates for you and some fairly interesting developments in the negotiations of Jadon Sancho and Kai Havertz. They are very similar to one another and they actually make a great deal of sense when you break them down. So we're going to delve into that. Arsenal, I see a link this morning, Arsenal linked to Sarr. Arsenal are going to buy Sarr from Watford. That'll be a good signing. It isn't him. It's free agent. I think his name is pronounced Malang Sarr. I think he played for Nice. He's now a free agent. They're now linked with him. We'll look at that story in a bit more detail. Morning to you, Dean Wiki. Hope you're well, mate. Who you guys going to compare to Bruno and you don't get Havertz? You guys bantering each other already in the comments section. Love it. Absolutely love it. I'm sure you know everything about Havertz, don't you? Me? No, I take what I know. I'm reading media reports and then we sit here and discuss media reports. That's it, bro. That's all we do. Winter here says, I love how papers say Chelsea have to sell to buy Havertz. Don't they realise they will have to pay in a structured form, but they're always going to sell these players anyway. Yeah, all clubs have to sell before they buy. But for a multitude of reasons. There is an element of raising funds, balancing the books, but there's also creating space in the roster. They have to sell to create space in the squad. You also don't want to have, think about it logically. Imagine this summer Chelsea signed for 4 new players. £1 million a week in new salaries. But they don't sell 4 or 5 players who then sit there and they're paid between them 800 grand a week and they don't play. Whether you're still making profits or not, imagine hemorrhaging £40 million a year in wages for players that are not going to kick a ball or barely play. It's crazy. It's legitimately crazy. But we like the dumbed down media. Oh yeah, Chelsea have got to sell first. The rivals laugh. It's like, yeah, of course they do. For multiple reasons. One, if you can raise funds to help buy players, that's better than taking it out your own back pocket. So imagine this. I want to buy a new TV. The new TV is £500. But imagine if I had the means and time. I've got 3 old TVs there in my house that I don't use. They're sitting there, they're in the garage. I don't know why I've got 3, but I do. I'm going to sell them. And I sell them for £200 collectively. Now, in terms of out of my back pocket, it's only going to cost me £300 for the TV. Now, that is a net spend kind of equivalent. And that's not actually quite true because I paid more than £200 for those 3 TVs in the first place. We're going to go over the course of time. But I'm like, well, I don't need those 3 TVs. I want this brand new TV. Let me sell those 3 TVs. And then I buy a new one. You know, it just makes sense. Rather than just having it sitting there and spending the cash that's in my bank account. If I could do something even better and raise even more money by selling lots of objects around my home that I don't have, then I'm not going into my bank account and my current funds to purchase somebody. It makes more sense. You know what I mean? It's just, but we're dumbed down by, we believe in net spend as a literal concept, as a linear concept of, well, you've got 200 million in the bank. If you sell a player for 50 million, we now have 250 million in the bank for us to go and spend. It doesn't work that way. It's all a percentage of the income that you generate. Now, selling the televisions, as I mentioned, would generate more income, thus you can spend. Someone here says, I'm sure most teams borrow a lot. Yeah, teams do borrow a lot of money. Teams will often go to a bank and get a very low interest loan for 2 or 3 year period to buy a player because they might be paying a few bips above base, which is less interest than they earn for the money sitting in a savings account. Or, you know, sometimes they might stick quite a bit of their cash reserve in a 6-month or a 12-month bond that's earning 2% interest. Now, if you earn 2% interest on £100 million, you're making more money than if you spent it. In comparison to taking out a loan of £100 million where you're paying 0.2 over base. It's just basic mathematics, basic business. But the media will try and twist that into Man United have to borrow to buy players. to make it feel like, oh, it's a negative. Oh, we're going to go under. Oh, it's kind of tainted in some way, you know? Like, oh, somebody bought. You know, back in the day, a lot of people would get credit to buy their cars, not because they couldn't afford the car, but you used to earn good savings rates. Imagine I said this to you, right, there's a brand new car, 50 grand for the car. Do you want to pay for it cash? Yeah, I've got 50 grand of cash in the bank. But you're earning 5% interest in your savings account on that. Okay. If you buy the car on finance, it's 2.9% interest. It's cheaper over a 5-year period to buy the car on finance than it is to spend your cash. So you're not taking a finance because you can't afford it. You're taking a finance because you're saving money. It's a sensible financial decision. In that basis, right now, there is no interest rates. So it's theoretically cheaper to spend your cash than it is to borrow the money. However, you don't want to spend all your cash because then you're left with no cash reserve. Cash is king in life. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. So the Kai Havertz situation is an interesting one because essentially, we're in this situation where you look at the Sancho thing as well. There's all this talk about Champions League football. Both Leverkusen and Dortmund are angling for the same deal here. They think they can push the price up of Kai Havertz and Sancho respectively if Chelsea and United respectively qualify for the Champions League. That in itself makes sense because what we know with Champions League qualification is there's a guarantee of an additional £50 million of revenue. Minimum of £50 million. Guarantee, absolute guarantee of an extra 50 mil. There's probably more like 60 to 70 mil based on sponsors, bonuses, and everything else that surrounds it. So the train of thought of the Dortmunds and the Leverkusens is, well, Chelsea and Man United respectively are bidding below the asking prices of our players. Let's wait till if they get into that Champions League, we can maybe drive a harder bargain because we know they're going to have more money. I think these stories make a little bit of sense. We have seen some movement in the last week or so, but I now get this. My opinion has kind of changed in the last few days. I think that Leverkusen and Dortmund are going to dig their heels in for another week or so until we come to until there's a conclusion to the season, and we'll see. Then, though, we go into the realms of maybe Man United and Dortmund still saying, no, no, we're still not going to pay the money that you want. So there we go. But there's still negotiations going on. They're still being done and conducted through the public, as always. In relation to Arsenal's story, this lad, Sarr, I read this article this morning, I read it to you. It says that Arsenal have held talks with former Nice defender Malang Sarr. This is the 21-year-old defender is a free agent after his deal with the league onside expired, but the Gunners face competition. Arsenal fans, are you enthused by this potential signing? Or do you feel that this is... And if you sign him, is that Upamecano deal done? Is this like a cheap version of Upamecano? I don't know much about the kid. So I'm asking your opinion. Jared B here says Chelsea can get rid of Jorginho for 50 million, Bakayoko for 20, Emerson for 20, Alonso for 15, Batshuayi for 25, Drinkwater for 5, total of 135 mil, and then take away the wages of Willian and Pedro. I'm not sure you'll get that much money for those players. You might on the books. I look at Bakayoko, I look at Alonso and Batshuayi. I think you've slightly overpriced them probably by about 20-30%. But you can raise £100 million. Same as Man United. Man United, if you're getting rid of their dead wood, if you include this, what you've also got to put into those prices though is their salary. Because their salaries and transfer fees all come out the same kitty at a club. That's why net spend is a nonsense. You know, if you sign, say for instance, you've got the room to spend £200 million in real-time cash. But if you sign two players that are on colossal wages, as an example, and you don't get the level of sales out, i.e. new money in and a reduction of salaries, that £200 million of surplus cash out of your turnover that you have to spend on players could be eaten up in salary. You know, if you sign, for instance, if you were to go and sign this summer, say I'm just going to do this calculation. If you went and signed, say like Mbappe and I'm throwing out a big player here, Mbappe and Paul Pogba, you'd probably collectively be paying about £850,000 a week, for instance, in salary to those two players. That's 44 million a year plus image rights. You're probably looking at somewhere in the region of £60 million a year, maybe more, just to house those two. So you might be able to pick them up for 80 and 120 million pound. You've then got the 60 odd million pound a year in salaries. That also, you have to get rid of players to do it. If you add up the salaries of Man United's players, of Lingard, Jones, Alexis Sanchez, you look at like 52 to 53 million pound a year. That in itself is almost enough to cover 2 or 3 signings in your first year in terms of the initial payments that are made. And I think these things are all really, really important to gauge and understand. Winter Surfer says, God, I love the live chat. Best decision becoming a member. I appreciate that, bloke. Mbappe and Neymar cost PSG almost 400 million euros. That's true. I was sitting there thinking it cost you more than 200 million to sign Mbappe and Pogba. But irrespective of that, if you had a 300 million pound budget, you have to factor in how much they're going to cost you a month or a month in salary as well, image rights, goal bonuses, everything else that comes in with that. So this is why the war chest notion is nonsense, because clubs will spend a percentage of their turnover on player expenditure, signing of players, renewal of contracts, salaries, agent fees, image rights, etc. There's only a set amount. You have to sell, or you have to sell to either raise physical cash incoming or reduce outgoings, and then the percentage of spend becomes higher. You know, if you've got a surplus of 10% of turnover, but you get rid of £60 million a year of salaries, and you raise £80 million in sales, suddenly you've got a higher threshold. So now you might be able to go out and sign those players and cover their wages. It's not done in a net spend form though, because net spend isn't real. Someone says, come on, Sheffield United and Palace. Yeah, big day of football today as well. We're going to be covering that for you all here on the Football Terrace. Terry, I'm nervous about United's game tonight, is what Jordan says. Bro, don't be. Man United will win tonight. Man United will pick up the points. We'll be back on point. We'll be flying tonight. There's no doubt about it in my mind. We'll be on point. Expect to see a few changes in the first team, but we'll beat Palace. And then it's full steam ahead Wembley on Sunday. Who do I think will start at right wing? I actually would pick Pereira myself, but I think it will be Dan James. I think it will be Dan James. Do you think we need Champions League football to get Sancho? No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I don't care about the FA Cup. We need top 4. Bro, I care about the FA Cup as well. Like, if we lose today, then I feel like we need to rest on Sunday so we're fit and firing for West Ham. Because if we lose tonight and Leicester win, then there's a problem. If Leicester win and we lose, we're 4 points away from the top 4 with 2 games to go. Meaning, even if we win our next two games, that still doesn't guarantee qualification. Because if Leicester win their next 2 games, we're done. If we go into the final game, like if Leicester win tonight and we lose, and then Leicester win their next game, and Chelsea win their next game, and it's out of our control. Making a pig's ear of explaining that. So winning tonight is so important. So important. But there we go. Listen, everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Do me a big favour, hit the like button, share button, retweet button, all of that. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button as well. And I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon. Bye-bye.